Its team getting that paint.
Maxey with the steal off a Monk, and he slams for two.
Hurts looking left, lofting left, going for the end zone, and he's caught.
Go to work.
Embiid foul, count it! Joel Embiid.
Defense is what you're looking for.
With 5, Hurts taking a deep shot, he's got his
Bagley. Fox blocks. Wow, great defensive play.
What is up, everybody? What is going down? It is Dives, Mr. Crackpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Our Eagles versus Buccaneers Wildcard preview continues tonight. And today we are talking about the top storylines of Sunday's game. To help me break it down, my man is Rob Lange. Follow him on Twitter at Philly_Madness. What's good, Rob?
So, Dives, last night it was all about trying to bring all that past success. So tonight I went with a little past success meeting present success, right? The dog mentality underneath of the Super Bowl jacket. I'm trying to bring out all the karma for the Birds because, frankly, they're probably going to need some of that on top of playing a perfect game.
Again, just like last night, we're going behind enemy lines. I got my guy out from outside of Philadelphia. The dude has an amazing Tampa Bay Buccaneers YouTube channel. You got to check it out. It is the Cannon Fire podcast. Check them out on Twitter at Cannon Fire Pod. What's good, Evan?
How's it going, guys? Really excited to be on here. I was explaining to you guys that, I'm actually, a lot of people believe I'm from Florida, but I'm actually from Pennsylvania. And I'm a big Sixers fan, big Phillies fan, Flyers, all that. But when it comes to football, I've always covered the Bucs. So excited to be here.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, please be sure to share the loves. Subscribe to my man's channel. Let's get started. Oh, by the way, make sure you like and subscribe here below. Let's get going, man. We're going to throw the first question to you, dude. This is a storyline show, so we got to break down this Tampa Bay rushing defense, which was third in the NFL, 15th in yards per carry. You kind of look since week 7, though, that they're like 15th best against the run. We have to know because the top storyline here is that Eagles' #1 rushing attack versus this rush defense. Go ahead, man. What do we need to know about this Tampa Bay rushing defense?
Yeah, well, it all starts up front with Vita Vea. It's just such a big body in front, and he clogs so much space that it's tough to run. And, for a lot of teams, they've struggled. And what has happened, one of the reasons that the Bucs have maintained one of those top rushing defenses is because teams aren't running the ball as much anymore. They're just trying to pass it because they haven't had much success. But over the past few weeks, like you said, week 7 on, really, they've kind of struggled. It hasn't really come back to bite them too much recently. Their worst games, actually, against the run, have mostly been wins for the most part. So they've struggled a little bit. They struggled against the Jets in week 17, and then they struggled last week a little bit against the Panthers, got it cleaned up in the second half, but you're right. I mean, this Eagles team is sort of a different animal that's hitting on all cylinders. And like I said, it's going to be up to the guys like Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh up front that are going to have to control the line of scrimmage, and also the linebackers, Devin White and Levante David, if David plays, are going to have to really clog the holes behind them, because if they don't, it could be a long day for the Bucs run defense, which isn't something that Tampa Bay fans are typically used to.
Yeah, I have latest news here 5 hours ago. Levante David designated to return from IR here. So we'll see. We'll see. That's not good for Eagles fans for sure. The other storyline here absolutely is Tom Brady, who is arguably the MVP of this season, man. In your opinion, how do the Eagles slow down Tom Brady on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it starts, obviously, this is going to be a cliche, but I think it starts up front. I think when you look at Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, I think those two guys are going to have to really control it, and they're going to have to keep him inside the pocket. Everybody says, oh, you beat Brady with pressure. Well, you beat him with pressure, but you bring him with interior pressure, right? Because if you get your edge guys, sure, that could work, but he's so good at maneuvering inside the pocket that he can easily avoid those guys. So if you don't let Brady step up, it could be a long day for him. It really could be. So I think it's going to be up to, and that's that's an interesting matchup. Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. I think it's going to be up to those two guys to be able to slow down Brady, because I mean, if the Eagles give him all the time in the world, I know Tampa's banged up, receiver wise, but I still think Brady's just going to be able to find somebody open.
Yeah, you cannot give Brady a clean pocket. You cannot give that open middle of the field to Tom Brady whatsoever, because he will eat you alive, which kind of goes into our number one matchups. Rob, we're going to kind of give our own 2 cents on these, but Evan, because mine touches on that as well. Evan, what's your number one matchup to watch for between the Eagles and Bucs?
Yeah, I'm actually going to point out the two Bucs linebackers. Versus this Eagles rush defense. I mean rush offense. The Bucs defense is really predicated on those two linebackers having success, getting off blocks, and right now they haven't been able to do that in recent weeks, especially Devin White. He's really been hurt by the absence of Levante David, and with David hopefully coming back for the Bucs, maybe that changes, but. Even like week 7 on, David played in those games, and sometimes they did struggle against the run. So I just think it's just about execution. And I think it's really going to be interesting to see how those two linebackers play. And I think it'll be a long way in determining who wins this game.
Yeah, that was my number one last night, right, Rob? Like the Eagles. Yeah. No, that was my number 3.
That was my one. That was my one, was how the Eagles handled the rush defense, because it's that really. And I'll continue to say this, if they try and break from what their identity has been on this win streak, they're in for a really, really long night. If they stick to that same identity of it doesn't matter who we're playing, we believe our guys are stronger up front and we're going to run the ball, then they got an opportunity to keep it close and maybe steal it late. But you've got to be able to win that battle if you want any chance in this game.
Yeah. Me and Rob went through this last week. He went the Cobra Kai route. I went the Miyagi-Do route. For me, it was all eyes on Jonathan Gannon, how he adjusts his defense, disguises that zone defense on Sunday for me. You look at the Eagles' losses this year, their pressure, they've gotten to the quarterback 6 times in Eagles' losses, 23 times in wins. You look at kind of the week 6 matchup here, the Eagles blitzed Brady 9 times in week 6, had a 9.5 pressure percentage. And Tom Brady just ate the Eagles alive. The Eagles cannot – that's what Jonathan Gannon does. He takes away the explosive plays, which in hindsight is smart against the Tampa Bay Bucs because they lead the league in explosive plays. On the other end, you can't wait for quarterbacks to beat themselves, make bad throws like he does against great quarterbacks. That's kind of been what we've seen. Quarterbacks that get the ball out fast have just carved up this Eagles defense this season. I have a sheet here that shows you all the good quarterbacks they played. Their quarterback rating is through the roof. And then you look at the bad ones, they played very, very well. So that's my concern. That my number one matchup here for me is Tom Brady versus Jonathan Gannon. You look at that blitz percentage, I think it's 31st in the NFL. So Jonathan Gannon has to disguise up front. He has to be able to blitz. He has to my other guy was Josh Sweat. We have to get to Tom Brady. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But for me, can Jonathan Gannon get into Tom Brady's head in that first quarter, in that second quarter, and just rattle him just this much to kind of throw off his timing? We will see. Rob, again, what's your number one?
Yeah, so, I'm just going to kind of say the same thing Evan did. I really think because, look, I don't have a lot of Jonathan Gannon trust. Just don't. I'm not sure what the appeal is for this guy. Everyone's jumping all over what they've done lately. Well, they've played about 7 South Jersey high school quarterbacks lately. So, yes, look, they've made some good plays. They've done some good things. He's made slight adjustments. But I don't believe in him as much. To me, the best defense this team can have Sunday, is a running attack to keep Tom Brady off the field, to shorten this game, right? That's how the Eagles have to make this game super ugly, right? It's got to be run the football. And listen, if the weather reports are correct, it plays into the Eagles' hand a little bit more. Wind gusts, rainy. That that plays into a running team's game, and they've got to be the ugly go get them. And normally I am Miyagi Do Dives. Normally I am. But this game's got to be Cobra Kai. All right. You need to go out there and enforce, you need to go after them with what you do best. Don't try and match Tom Brady. You will get burned. It's not Super Bowl 52, and it's not going to happen again.
Tim McManus had a really cool tweet. According to Elias, Eagles Bucs is the 4th playoff game since the merger between the top rushing offense, Philadelphia, and the top passing offense, the Tampa Bay Bucs. And this is the first since 1996. And in the 2 of the 3 matchups, the top rushing team won. So that, you could just throw all that out the window. It doesn't mean a goddamn thing. But in the end, that's a fun stat. That's a really fun stat. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Let's move on to our next storyline here. I'm going to throw it to you, Evan. Let's start off with the Bucs. What's one position the Bucs have a major advantage of over the Eagles?
Yeah, I hate to bring it back to it, but I think the linebacker position. I look at the Eagles defense and I see solid players at all levels, except the linebacker position who, Howie Roseman just refuses to draft a linebacker in the first round. But, there's been some talented ones there, but that's been a position that's kind of been ignored. And the Eagles linebackers haven't been awful this season, but it's just, I think compared to the Bucs, it's certainly lacking. And I think Devin White and Levante David, especially when they're on, I think when they're on, this could be possibly the best linebacker tandem in the NFL. Yeah. So, it's not like a real slight against the Eagles linebackers. It's just that I think that this matchup for the Bucs, linebacker to linebacker, is a major advantage for Tampa.
I couldn't agree more. Well said. What about you, Rob? What's your position here? The Bucs have a major advantage over the Eagles.
Pick one. I honestly, listen. Look. You can, without a doubt, they have at the quarterback position. I think their skill players are better than the Eagles because honestly, outside of Devontae Smith, I think Gronk. Look, Dallas Goedert's been good, but Gronk is better than him. Mike Evans is the best wide receiver on the field. If Miles Sanders isn't playing, I love what the Eagles running backs do, but Leonard Fournette is the better player. So there's a lot of different ways to go. I mean, I'm going to just go simple with this one. You have Tom Brady. You literally have an advantage over every single team you play when Tom Brady's your quarterback, especially one in his second year who's really trying to figure out how to play at this level. So to me, the biggest one is Tom Brady versus Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, just to echo what Evan said, linebackers are going to Levante David, Shaq Barrett, all those guys, just that front seven is going to give me nightmares. Jalen Hurts has to play better. He has to be able to step up in front of pressure, stay in the pocket, make good throws, but also know when to get out of the pocket and make good throws. He had one of his worst completion percentage, second worst this season against the Tampa Bay Bucs in Week 6. That has to be better, obviously. But it's Tom Brady, man. Tom Brady lost Chris Godwin. He lost Leonard Fournette late this year. Gronk missed 5 games. Antonio Brown played half the season before getting released. And the dude had 5,300 plus yards and 43 touchdowns. Get the fuck out of here, man. It's obnoxious how good this guy is. Just like a fine wine. I'm going to go on the Eagles side, man. Evan, do you have any Eagles, matchup advantages at all?
So not necessarily a position group, but I do look at Darius Slay and the season that he's having.
Yeah.
And he's been spectacular. And while the Bucs' number 1 corner, Carlton Davis, is a good player, I do think that Darius Slay, when he takes the field, Darius Slay is going to be the best corner on the field. Yeah. I don't know, the Eagles typically, they don't have it's not like Darius Slay is always lined up against the number 1 target, but hey, with the Bucs banged up, maybe they do have him shadow Mike Evans a little bit. I know they play a lot of zone anyway, but I think Darius Slay, with the season he's having, I think he's easily going to be the best cornerback on the field, which isn't necessarily, yet again, with the Eagles and the linebackers thing, it's not a slight to Carlton Davis or the cornerbacks the Bucs have. Mm-hmm. It speaks more to the season that Darius Slay is having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely agree. What about you, Rob?
Kicker? Punter, maybe? I don't really know what the Tampa punter stats are, but Sipos had a pretty good year. I mean, look, it's hard for me to look at any position group. The Eagles' 2 strengths are their lines, right? Well, Tampa's really good in those spots as well. I will just say from this standpoint, I'll give Jason Kelce the nod because, everybody thought he was done 2 years ago. Everybody thought that was it. It was probably time for him to really retire, this and that. And there have been more plays this year where he is beating running backs down the field, sprinting full speed. And it's like this guy, not only is he huge as far as talent on the field, but his off the field leadership has been huge for this squad. So, I mean, I will go with the center position.
Yeah.
Not once again, I'm not taking a shot at Tampa and their offensive line. I'm just really struggling to find a position to give to the Eagles. So I'm going to give him Jason Kelce.
I'm going to go off the cusp as I always do here. I'm going to go the Sirianni factor for my just not even a position, but I mean, a head coach to watch here. Only rookie head coach in the playoffs. It's his first playoff game. For me, man, I don't know about you, Evan, but the Eagles are playing with house money. This season has already been a success. There have been so many positives this year compared to last year. Andre Dillard, Nick Sirianni as a play caller, as a leader. You have 3 first-round picks coming in a few months. For me, I think the pressure's on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. If there is a world, there's like a universe here where if the Eagles kind of start off fast and punch Tom Brady in the face, get some pressure, force a turnover, and make this a game come second half, there will be a lot of Eagles fans down at that stadium. I don't know what the ticket sales are looking like right now, but I know there's going to be a lot. I know there's going to be a lot of Eagles fans down there. Maybe you could kind of turn the tables a little bit here in the second half and maybe have a chance at winning this game. For me, Nick Sirianni has grown leaps and bounds as this season has gone on. I love his play calling, creativity-wise. It's gotten better and better and better. Lane Johnson had a touchdown. Darius Slay has been in the backfield on offense. That's what I expect to see. I expect to see a ton of pre-snap movement, get those linebackers off balance, get them moving for sure. So that is my position to watch for the Philadelphia Eagles here. And let's roll on to kind of the opposite end. What's an underrated storyline, Evan, for both teams that no one is talking about?
Well, I actually think for both teams, they share the same one. Both teams have kind of gotten off. Tampa recently have gotten off to some slow starts. It's been for both teams. I think you looked at the Eagles. They really never got it going in New York versus the Giants. That was a slow start. The game that they won in Washington, it was a slow start. The game in Philly that they won, it was a slow start. So they've really had these slow starts. Greg Allman, who's a fantastic Bucs beat reporter for The Athletic, had said that the Eagles have been outscored 32-7 in the first quarter of their last 4 games. And they've given up 100 first quarter points. That's second most in the NFL, only behind the Jacksonville Jaguars, who currently own the number 1 pick. So the Eagles have really struggled to get off to fast starts. But with the Bucs down these weapons, they have now too. They've had a few slower starts these past few weeks. Obviously, they were down big to the Jets. The game in Carolina scored first. They kicked the field goal. The last game in Tampa, Carolina scored first. They scored a touchdown. Tampa really didn't get that going until late in the second quarter. So to me, for both teams, this is a rare instance for both teams where it's kind of the same storyline and it's the slow starts. Whoever can start faster, I think, is going to have a much greater chance of winning this game.
Well said. Well said. What about you, Rob?
For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's a cliche one, but I think there's some realness to it. How much are guys not named Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski affected by the Super Bowl hangover? And I know that people say, these are professional athletes, but listen, guys, they just played a super long season last year, right? They went all the way to the end. They're back this year. You got all kinds of nonsense happening with COVID, everything else. I mean, some of these guys, they may think that they just have to show up, right? The odds makers have the line at 9 points. I mean, the Eagles are lucky to even be here. You got to be careful of that. And we saw it with the Eagles. We saw it after Super Bowl 52. And I know that they won the first playoff game the year after that. However, they were on the road. First of all, they had to get in by a wild card. And secondly, they lost because a guy couldn't make a field goal, or they won because a guy could make a field goal. So how much does the Super Bowl hangover affect them? And kind of in the same realm for the Eagles, how do they handle so many of them being in their first playoff action?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're two separate ends of the spectrum, but it's the same story. You know, you're not used to this. How do you handle the spotlight? Is it too big for some guys? You know, look, and sorry, Dibs, hate to do this, but like, to me, a Jalen Reagor should not really see the field. Like he hasn't been able to face the light in the regular season. I would not put him back there. Jason Huntley's on the roster. He's my kick and punt returner this week. Like, I'm not playing that game with these guys that are already a little weak mentally in a big time game like this.
Yep. Same for Miles Sanders, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he's coming back, but the dude has definitely had some issues between the years, you know, not getting out of bounds, fumbling the ball, just bad timing, fumbles. For me, I've got one for the Eagles, and I'm going to, you know, you look at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line. Together, they've played 1,000 snaps. You know, as much as we rave about the Eagles offensive line, Tampa Bay is arguably the best in the NFL. Obviously, Cox and Hargrave have to, you know, be ready to slow down this Bucs rushing attack. But the underlying storyline I'm talking about is someone we don't talk a lot about enough, and that is TJ Edwards. For me, TJ Edwards, for this Eagles rushing defense, he's really thrived since, you know, getting that starting role with the Eagles. They're 6-3, but you can throw away that Cowboys game when no one played. So 6-2. You look at the Eagles since TJ Edwards was named starter. The Eagles have held opponents to 84.3 yards per game and 3.7 yards per carry. Granted, the Eagles didn't play anybody at quarterback over the majority of those games, but those two numbers would be number one in the NFL if you know you take it off face value. So for me, TJ Edwards is gonna have his name called a lot on Sunday. Hopefully we hear his name for the better, not the worse. We'll see, but TJ Edwards versus Leonard Fournette, man, that's going to be a wild storyline to watch. No doubt about it. Evan, who is your standout star for the Bucs and Eagles here?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with a guy who kind of hit a lull. Not many people really noticed it outside of Tampa, but he kind of hit a lull, but he's been, you know, climbing back up. He's been getting a little bit hotter these last few weeks, and that's tight end Rob Gronkowski. Now he has 2 straight games with over 100 yards after his Week 15 game versus the Saints on prime time. That might have been possibly the worst game I've ever seen him play, and obviously with New England being on prime time so much, I've seen him play quite a bit. So that was just a brutal game, but he's bounced back really nice. And like I said, he's had over 100 yards, 2 straight games. And with the absence of Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown, they're not gonna have to rely on Mike Evans, right? I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think you're gonna have to get somebody else involved, and I think Rob Gronkowski in the middle of this defense, in the middle of the field, I think he could get some matchups, and I think that's where Tom Brady is going to look for first. So I do think Rob Gronkowski could be in for a big day. And keep in mind, tight end O.J. Howard had his best game of the season against the Eagles. He had 7 receptions for 49 yards, I believe, and a touchdown when they played in Week 6. Rob Gronkowski didn't play in that game. So there's a difference there, and we're going to see how Gronkowski not only impacts this game in the passing game, but also as a run blocker, because he's one of the best run blocking tight ends, I think, in the NFL still. It's remarkable, but I think he's going to be a big factor in this one. He's my standout star.
Uh-oh. Can't hear you.
Sorry. Any reaction to that, Rob? And who's your standout star?
Well, look, I one of my big keys in the game for tomorrow was Gronkowski versus the Eagles linebackers. I think Gronk could very easily have like one of those, 130-yard performances if the Eagles don't do what they need to do with him. So, I definitely agree there. It's so hard for me. Like, I want to give an Eagles standout star, but like where I sit today, and it could change because, I've been back and forth. Like, I think it's a close game. But I at this moment, I think the Bucs probably pull the game out. So I'm going to keep it simple again. Look, when the Eagles have won this year, they have played pretty terrible quarterbacks for most of the year. When they have lost, the quarterback has diced them up. I just don't know if Jonathan Gannon's going to do what he needs to do to slow down Tom Brady. So even if it's not just Gronk or not just Mike Evans, Brady will find everyone on the field that's open. It could be, Scotty Humphreys. It could be Le'Veon Bell. It could be Leonard Fournette. It could be, you name it.
Perriman.
So Perriman, yeah. I mean, it could be literally anybody, and it could be a day where you see like 10 different Bucs catch a ball if Gannon lets him sit back there and just have a cup of coffee. So it's boring, I know, but Tom Brady is going to be the standout star in this game.
We have Brett saying, I heard that it's going to be high winds and rain on Sunday in Tampa. And Quinn says that we need a typhoon to win this game.
Which I will say, the rain and the wind only affect it if you do not allow the underneath crap that it doesn't take much to get to the guy.
Yeah.
Like, you got to actually get up on the receivers. Like, let these guys play physical. If you get burnt in this game, so what? So what? Leave everything on the field, throw the kitchen sink, strike first, right? Isn't that my Cobra Kai line? Strike first.
Yes, it is. Yeah, for me, like if we're talking Eagles and if they're going to be a standout star, it's got to be either the entire offensive line, which we've said many times during our post-game shows. It's got to be Darius Slay, like you've said, Evan. And for me, it's got to be Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat has 4 sacks in his last 4 games. Darius Slay has been absolutely unbelievable this year. Just terrific. And then you talk about kind of this team, this Bucs team. They're the second best team on third down this year. You got to have Josh Sweat. This is a team that likes to run on first downs a lot. Stop the run, get them to third and longs if possible, and maybe you have a chance because that third and short against Tom Brady and Gronk, no chance. Absolutely no chance with this Eagles defense, with these Eagles linebackers. They will get torn apart for sure. The way Tom Brady gets the ball out fast, I think it's literally the second quickest in the NFL. So for me, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, I think both of those two guys have to make plays. They have to have at least 2 or 3 big plays or both in this game to just keep momentum on their favor. So for me, that's my standout star. And then we're going to get into just score predictions here, man. Evan, what is your score prediction of Sunday's game?
Yeah, so I think this is a pretty close game. I do. We talked earlier about how, you brought up a good point. Now, the pressure's all on the Buccaneers, right? The pressure isn't really on the Eagles. The Bucs are the defending Super Bowl champions trying to get back there for the second straight year. The Eagles were a team that not many expected to even make the playoffs. There was a lot that expected them to have a top 5 pick. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought they were a better team than that, but I didn't necessarily have them pegged as a playoff team. So, yeah, they're going to, I like the point you guys brought up about throwing a kitchen sink. I think they're going to, right? And, what do they have to lose? If they lose, nobody's going to wake up Monday morning saying, oh, this and that about the Eagles. But if the Bucs lose, it's going to be applauding the Eagles, and all the shame is going to be on the Bucs. So I think the Eagles are going to play a pretty freestyle game. The weather definitely impacts it. I think this game's lower scoring than some may think. But you guys also brought up the lack of experience that the Eagles have. And I think that's going to play a factor. You have a quarterback who hasn't been in the playoffs yet, and you have a head coach who hasn't been in the playoffs yet. And I just think that is going to be a factor against Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, who are 2 of the most experienced guys you'll find. So I do have the Bucs narrowly winning this game. I think they win it by a score of 23-20. I think it's pretty close the entire game, but I think in the end, Brady just makes one more play. I don't think the Eagles will get a chance to get the ball back.
I'm telling you right now, if the Eagles lose 23-20, I'll be ecstatic. I'm doing 2 or 3 draft videos a week. I am ecstatic heading into this offseason for me. Quinn has an interesting question because Tampa Bay had trouble with the New Orleans Saints this year. He says, the star of the game will whoever can steal a copy of the Saints defensive playbook here. What happened in that quick matchup? Quick takes on that.
Yeah, so, the Saints are a team that has just match up really well with the Bucs. They do a lot of things that the Bucs want to do. The Saints take away. They can play press man. They have sort of that tight end eliminator, as you guys know very well, Malcolm Jenkins. they have that guy, and they also have the guys to match up one-on-one with guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin when they're healthy. They have spectacular safeties, and they play a lot of too high and don't give the Bucs those explosive plays. It's a lot of man-to-man, and for some reason, nothing that the Saints really do scheme-wise, but the Saints' defensive line always seems to give the Bucs offensive line troubles. The Bucs offensive line has been a strength for years, but just in those matchups, they can't win. And then what Brady's looking at with the linebackers, Demario Davis is one of the most underrated players in the entire NFL. With the linebackers and the corners with the safeties, the coverages are just so confusing, and the Saints can do so many different things. Not teams try it, right? But not every team has the personnel to do that, and that's why you see Tampa struggle against the Saints. Teams have tried it. The Panthers tried it. The Jets tried it, but it didn't work out as well because teams just don't have the same personnel that the Saints do.
Going back to like for the concept of throwing the kitchen sink, Anthony Hinn says play press man, double Gronk, blitz Singleton every chance you get. The Eagles had a 15.5 blitz percentage, among the worst in the NFL. Could you imagine like that? Like that would definitely throw the Buccaneers upside down if the Eagles came out and just started blitz. Could you imagine that? Like, because we as Eagles fans, we have been pounding the table to stop rushing forward, which they can just do every single time, and they just get exposed for sure. What about you, Rob? What is your score prediction for this game?
Listen, this is a game where my fear is that you hear Bucs players in interviews after the game saying, we expected to see some different things from our first matchup, but we really didn't. They ran the same scheme defensively. That's my fear, because if that happens, I think you're going to see a very similar game to that first one. Like, I know the Eagles are playing better, but if they get down 14-0 to the Bucs and Tom Brady, it's not the same as getting down 10-0 to Taylor Heineke or 3-0 to Jake Fromm. It's a totally different scenario. But I do think this game will be somewhat close. I think maybe Tampa scores late to go up 10 or to go up like 14, probably 10. I'll go 10. And and then I think the Eagles come back and maybe score a touchdown late and then don't recover an onside kick, that sort of thing. I think they stay within that spread, well within that spread. I feel so confident about that. I already bet the game today. And I think they lose at 28-24. And just like Chris said, Philadelphia fans that are going to watch this show, calm down. Don't call into the stations on Monday and talk about the failure and all that crap. There is no failure to this year. We said all year, just watch and hope for, a little bit of growth. And you've seen that. So just keep that in mind.
No question. I'm in the like 34-27 area for me. I think Tampa Bay wins by a score here, maybe 2. I just think, Tom Brady is that kryptonite to Jonathan Gannon. Like his ability to just get the ball out fast. I think at the end of the day, third quarter, fourth quarter, crunch time, when Brady needs to get a first down, that is my nightmare. Mike Evans has 20 first downs on third down this year. I think it's like top 10 in the NFL. Then you have Gronk. I just like you said, Evan, I don't think we have the personnel to slow that down. I just want to give a quick shout out to Avonte Maddox too. You talk about kind of like mismatches and how Tom Brady is so good at that throughout the years to find one and exploit it again and again and again. Avonte Maddox has had a terrific year. So that could be an area where maybe a big play happens and he kind of makes a beat on the ball and gets a pick for me. But so I think 34-27, Bucs get the W here for sure. So with that being said, let's wrap it up, man. Evan, where can we find you, man? What do you got going on? Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun. And, it's cool to have a Bucks Eagles playoff matchup, right? It's back from the past. Really, it's been a lot of history, right? That
Oh,
not
yeah.
a lot of people like remember nowadays, right? Because a lot of people are younger and stuff. And I wasn't even really young enough. I mean, old enough to really watch those. So yeah, you guys can find me at Can of Fire Podcast on YouTube. I host the podcast with my buddy Rhett. And we also have Twitter at Can of Fire Pod. And you can find my personal Twitter at Evan NFL.
Like I said, I'll never forget Joe Jaravicius getting just a 5-yard pass.
Changed the whole game.
Running for miles.
And I tell you what I always think about when I think about that play, I don't see Joe Jaravicius anymore. You know where I see? Barry Gardner taking the worst angle of pursuit by a linebacker I've ever seen. And everyone forgets that it was that offseason that the Eagles decided not to re-sign Jeremiah Trotter. And that was when the whole, we can win with any linebacker idea, I think, really started. And it burned them at the worst possible moment in a season where they had look, the Eagles have won Super Bowl 52, all's forgiven. But that was the year for the Eagles to break the curse. Yeah. That was absolutely the year in 2002, because they were just as equipped as the Bucs to go in and beat the Raiders that season. So it's haunting, but you know what? Super Bowl 52 made me feel a little better.
Yeah, man. Rob, where can we find you, man? What do you got going on?
At Philly_Madness, Facebook, Rob Lange, but that's really my real estate page. If you need a home or you're looking to sell, you can hit me up. I have no problem giving shameless plugs for that. But right here, Party on Broad, whether we're talking Eagles or Sixers, right here with my man Dives doing our thing. And Evan, let me just thank you as well for joining us today. It was awesome.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thank you so much, Evan. It's always good to get your perspective because, we actually, I think we pride ourselves on being objective Eagles fans. But, more information, the better. Absolutely. What do we got going on? We've got Friday afternoon. I've got Brendan Deeg, terrific guy here. I think he's through. Where is he through? I forget. Football Post. He's the co-host of the Double Doink podcast. Amazing guy. He'll be breaking down this Eagles matchup here on Friday afternoon. Of course, you can always find us during Sixers post games and Sixers content, interviews, everything there. Right after this, I'm doing a Book of Boba Fett review for Chapter 3. It wasn't great.
Oh, what upset me?
Yeah. Did you finish Cobra Kai, Rob?
I did. It's funny, Dives, the night I talked to you, and I said, I'm only going to watch 2 a night. I sat down and stayed up till 1 a.m. and watched 5.
That's what me and my wife did.
5 or 6 to finish this. I was like, nope. Like, I got to episode 10, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to bed without finishing this right now. They're in the middle of the fight. I got to finish it now. I can't not finish the show.
That's normally how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cobra Kai is like Ted Lasso. If you ever watch that show, like forget it. Like, you're going to watch the entire season in literally.
Cobra Kai is one of those shows. It is so ridiculously 80s and cheesy, and I cannot turn away from it. Like, I am so locked into every minute of that show.
Did you get the Rocky references in the show?
Yes.
So I don't want to say it because I don't know if Evan watched it or not.
I haven't. I think I haven't watched a single episode, but I know that since this new season came out, I've been thinking about starting it. So
I can't recommend enough. If you love the Karate Kid movies, the OG Karate Kid movies, and you just love like 80s nostalgia, like it's for you. It's terrific. It's so fun. It's essentially a copy and paste of the Karate Kid movies. Yeah. But that's a good thing. So thank you so much for joining, Evan. Cannon Fire Podcast. Don't miss any of it. Again, follow us on Twitter at Party on Broad, my man at Philly_Madness. I am Dives, Mr. Crockpot, for Rob, for myself, for Evan. Stay awesome, everybody.
This team getting that paint.
Maxey with the steal off a Monk, and he slams for 2.
Hurts looking left, wanting left, going for the end zone, and he's
Go to work.
Embiid foul, count it! Joel Embiid.
Defense is what you're looking for.
5. Hurts taking a deep shot. He's got his
Fox blocked. Wow, great defensive play